Okay, now that we've got the recording going. Alrighty, so the first item on the agenda is the approval of this month's agenda. Do we have a motion?
Motion to move to accept.
Okay,
Second that.
second, okay. Guess we're all in favor. All right, and then the approval of the November 4th meeting minutes. I know that's going back a couple of months, but did anybody see anything that needed to be corrected on there? It looked okay to me, but.
Motion to accept.
Okay, motion to accept.
I'll second it.
All righty. I'll make it a third, so we're good. All righty, so we'll go down to the chair's report. Apologize, the guys are working a little late today, so there will be a little bit of background noise, but they're wrapping up in about 10 or 15 minutes. So I'll just try and talk loud. If it's appropriate, I'll mute myself, but we'll go down to the chair's report. Early last month, I attended a press conference held in Penn Station by Senator Schumer, in which he announced a working agreement between the MTA and Amtrak to both perform the long overdue remediation of the East River tunnels and the work required for the Penn Access project. Later in the month, I attended another press conference at Penn Station. This time it was held by Congressman Tom Suozzi regarding the conditions in Penn. I focused my remarks on the homeless and panhandlers there, as this has been an ongoing concern of our ridership that was highlighted in the Long Island Railroad's recent customer satisfaction survey. At the December MTA board meeting, it was announced that the all off-peak, all the time policy has been extended until the end of February, along with a new 20-trip ticket that it's felt will suit the needs of the 2 to 3 day a week rider once peak fares resume on March 1st. This ticket will come with a 20% discount. Also, starting in March, will be a 10% discount on the standard monthly tickets. Governor Hochul recently announced that she is sending Janno Lieber's name to the New York State Senate for confirmation as the permanent CEO, board chairman of the MTA, which, in my opinion, is excellent news. He's really deserving of the position. And then regarding openings on the Long Island Railroad Commuter Council, now that the new administrations have taken office in Brooklyn, Queens, and Nassau, we will resume our push to get nominees to fill our vacancies up to the governor's office. And this will be one of the things we'll discuss on our priority list for 2022. That's all I have for the chair's report. Do we have any questions or comments? If not, we'll move down to Hector. We're good?
Yep.
All righty, so Hector, we've got a couple of items we just wanted to get updates on. I guess the first one was like winter prep, what the railroad's doing for prep for possible storms.
Yep. So obviously we had the storm, our first storm about a week ago. So we actually, this goes back to, it started back in the fall. Like, so back in the, September time period, we do we start the winter storm prep process early fall, which is, we have like an WSOP, winter storm operating plan. So we distribute the plan to all departments to make any updates based on, things that we saw happening last year, and then, updating staff and any changes. And then we met periodically with the senior leadership to go over that. And then, like, for example, from my end, I have to update. We have a list of all the municipalities with the parking lots, and we have like maps of who's responsible for what at each station. And then we reach out to the towns and villages to get, updated contact info and cell numbers. So like during a storm, there's an issue with snow removal at a sidewalk or parking lot. We have the right contacts to follow up as we get, as we notice complaints or as we get complaints from riders. And then, like, for example, the snowstorm that we did have 2 weeks ago, then like about 3 days before the storm, we start having meetings, multi-department meetings leading up to it, coming up with our staffing plans, making sure that everything that has to happen is happening. And then sometimes during the storm, we start having, if we do have major disruptions or things are going on, then we start having periodic meetings throughout the storm internally to get everybody up to speed. As part of that, we also have like a command center on our third floor in Jamaica. Now we're using Teams more, it's more virtual, but we actually set up a command center. So you have reps from all different disciplines all together just to focus on the storm and respond to incidents in real time. So for example, we have a public affairs desk or PIO desk. As we get a complaint about say an IC sidewalk or platform, in the same room, we have the engineering people. They can call out to the field and have their forces respond. So that's kind of how we prepare for the winter storms.
Hey, there was a lot of concerns just prior to the last storm that we had. A couple of days prior to that, we had a lot of icy conditions. Where do you get your weather forecast from? Because, you know, I know that one kind of caught you by surprise, but you know, we had a lot of people slipping and falling, and it was, you know, it was a problem.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what happened there, but it seems like something, you know, yeah, we seem to have been caught off guard a little bit by that one with the ice.
Okay, I mean, it's just, you know, not just for our riders, but also for the railroad, because, you know, slips and falls sometimes winds up in lawsuits and stuff like that, and it's the last thing anybody needs. We don't want riders hurt, and we don't want your lawyers tied up doing silly stuff. Okay, I guess the next item moving down would be ridership and mask informant update. I think we've slipped back a little bit on the ridership because of the last wave.
Yeah,
I know we were up to 50% for a while.
Yeah, in December we were up to 50% early December. November to December now it has dipped a little. You know, it's back in the 40s now. So we'll see what happens with that. And even internally with our staff, you know, in November we went back to bringing everybody back to the office 100% on alternating days in November. But you know, now right before Christmas we have to go back to remote for some lot of employees now because of what's going on.
Yeah, unfortunately, a lot of companies here in the city have done the same thing. So I know a lot of people that were back to work full time, and now all of a sudden they're back to once or twice a week or just working remotely. So it's.
I mean, as of this week, the numbers of the employees getting you know, being affected and then being quarantined that had been up slightly, and now it looks like this week is starting to trend back. So we're it looks like it's leveling out a little bit, at least for the employee side.
Okay. We'd asked about the mask enforcement update. Now we know that the conductors avoid conflict wherever possible. But have we heard anything from MTA police about, you know, stepping on trains or doing some enforcement on the platforms or whatever? I haven't seen too much and I haven't heard too much. So that's why we're asking.
I mean, they made that big announcement. I thought it was like back in November that they were going to, you know, do that.
Yeah, they appeared to do it for a while, and then all of a sudden it kind of like petered out. So I don't know whether they changed their priorities or whatever, but we really haven't seen too much. Fortunately, at least my view, and maybe Brian or Larry is seeing something different. Most of the ridership has been pretty good about wearing their masks. So I haven't seen too much of a problem, but you know, you do hear the scattered from people here and there that there are riders that are just refusing. If you could follow up with just the MTA police and just see if they're, you know, what's going on with the enforcement, we'd appreciate it, because it looks like we got a little surge there for a week or so, and then boom, it dropped back. Okay, I think we have a question. Deborah, you have a question?
It's Chris and Debbie.
Chris and Debbie, okay.
Yeah, it's okay, Jerry.
I answered all your questions. I answered all your questions on Monday. The ADA meeting.
Not this one. Let's be nice, Hector.
No, Hector, not this time. Let it, you can't read his mind,
Hold on, Hector.
but you did answer a
Okay,
lot of
Okay,
that question.
let me focus on the meeting. Hector, it is brought to my attention with some customers that I know who has been emailing me, and I did tell them to forward it to the complaint division, and as well as Jerry. And I want to thank you, Jerry. You were at Penn Station. You look great on ABC 7.
Yeah, you
Oh,
did.
thank
You really look good. And I know because Andrew was bragging about me when I was with him on the R32 train, which I'm saying that for the record. So I don't care he gets upset with me. But Hector, getting into the serious note, there are a lot of construction workers are not wearing the mask. That is the problem on the Babylon and the Monterey branch. And as we speak, they can be on right now on this train, starting from Penn or Atlantic, connecting to Jamaica and refuses to wear it. And I'd be honest with you, I don't see the MTA police on the trains. I see them more on the subways, and I can vouch with that. But at the same time, the only time I do see them very more is it's very maybe on a weekend, on a Saturday or Sunday at Atlantic Terminal. But it would be nice to see them on the train when they're in the terminal, or strongly making more announcements, because I've been on the Babylon branch and I don't hear them making an announcement. I see it more on the Macondo branch, the Huntington branch, and the other branches, but not the Babylon or the Montauk. Can we please, boost that up? And I'm glad to see there are more signages going out, but I don't see enough signages or announcements on that line, period. And it's been brought to my less than 2 hours ago.
Okay.
Alrighty. All right. So Hector, I might have stole your thunder with my chair's report, but if you could just update us on the new fare implementation, the timing and next steps, that kind of thing.
Oh, yeah, so as you said, those are gonna kick in for March. So for, by mid-February, when the new monthlies go on sale, the going back to peak fare starting in March. And it's also gonna be those discounts, like the trip ticket and some of the other thing that change for the city ticket is gonna be implemented too.
Okay. Now, these are just what they call pilot programs, right? Because we have to make anything permanent, we'd have to have fare hearings. So the understanding right now is these are pilot programs that will run for a few months, and then at whatever time they decide to have a fare hearing, I guess they'll decide yay or nay on whether we're going to keep some of these things going on. Is that the right understanding, or?
Yes, so probably in the summer they're gonna start looking at some of the data, see how it's been going, and they'll make a determination there to either continue the pilot or make it permanent or
Okay.
stop it.
Alrighty.
I got a question on that, John.
Oh, yeah. Go ahead,
After the 20 trip thing, is that just 20 trip on peak or off peak?
I believe it's peak. It's like
Okay,
it's like an alternative to buying a monthly ticket.
Right. So it's a 20 trip peak that expires how long?
I haven't been I'm not up to date on that, so I have to get back to you on that with the details.
Thank you. Yeah, because I'm just wondering if they're going to try to do the 30-day 20 trip. That could be an issue. So I'm just kind of curious what the expiration, or if they're going to do 6 months or whatever, like they do with the off peaks.
How long is the 10 trip?
The 10, I think, is 6 months. I don't know, Hector, is that true?
Yeah, for some reason I thought it was.
I'm just bringing it up because it shouldn't be shorter than the 10 trip.
Oh, no, definitely not.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I just don't want it to see them try to do a 30-day 20 tripper. That could cause grief.
You know what? I'm gonna circulate to you guys. I don't have it at my disposal, but I'll send you guys tomorrow the details of the ticket options.
Yeah, and I think there was one or two things I think that still need to be ironed out. Excuse me. I know the union was a little concerned about the 20 trip ticket, or whether it was going to be for an individual or whether you can use it for multiple people. And by that, I don't mean like I use it one day and then I flip it off to, to Larry to use next day. I think the concern from the union was someone brings 3 or 4 people on, and then they're trying to use the 20 trip ticket for like 4 people or 5 people at a time. So I don't know where that went. That was just something that was brought up at the last board meeting, and it will be something that will be ironed out before it goes into effect in March.
Well, Jerry, just doing a Google search here real quick, and this is for the regular 10 trip tickets. They supposedly last for 60 days, and maybe Lisa.
Yep, I just looked on the website.
Yeah, you can speak more to this possibly. But I would think that they would keep it the same, that you would at least have 60 days to use the 10 trip, but I'm not sure about the 20 trip tickets with their expiration date.
Jerry,
Yeah,
excuse me for being stupid, but what is the big problem if a 20 trip ticket is used for 3 people? I don't.
again, this is the gentleman who represents the conductors and, I makes things more difficult for them. I don't quite understand it, but that was just something that was brought up.
It's
All right,
Lisa.
I
I'm
just
sorry
don't-
I'm sorry for being late. I agree, Larry. I thought it was an odd point to bring up when he brought it up at the meeting. If you have a 10 trip, I could use it for myself. I could use it for everybody here, right?
Yeah,
It's not like it's a monthly where I can use it for myself.
It's probably what their intention is. It's supposed to be a replacement to the monthly, and the monthly is not transferable. So, not that I agree with it, but that's probably the rationale behind it.
Yeah, I can understand that being the rationale of potentially the MTA, but the union guys, what would they care? I just don't understand that.
because his people are the guys who have to check the tickets. I think it's, pardon my language, I think it's being a little pissy, but that's, I'm not a conductor. I don't have to collect the tickets. So I didn't even think it would have been an issue, to be perfectly honest with you. I was really surprised when he brought it up, but
Maybe they're just trying to use it as a bargaining chip for future negotiation. I don't know.
yeah, one never knows, All right, anything else on
The
the?
10
Oh, sorry.
I was just going to say, if the 10 trip is good for 60 days, the 20 trip should be good for at least 90 days. So
Yeah,
if
I would.
Hector could get back to us on what the time frame is, and if it's not 90 days, I think that's something that we should ask for a revision or take into consideration.
You can look on the website. Isn't the 10 trip off peak like for 6 months or something like that, or no?
No,
No,
we
60 days.
confirmed it's 60 days. We just
60
looked at the
days. They
website.
looked it up.
Oh, okay. I guess I got one in my pocket. I just can't reach for it.
All righty, so
I'm going to see what the New Jersey one is good for. I think that
Sure.
we had asked that the 20 trip be a longer expiration than the 10 trip.
yeah,
And I know, I
I-
believe that Andrew had also asked that it not necessarily, that the monthlies be able to be skewed so that they started from the time that you use them, not the first day of the month, but I don't think that is
Okay. Well,
anywhere. Yeah.
Here's a little monkey wrench. I've got a 10 tripper in my hand right now that I purchased on December 28th. It expires on June 28th, so it's 6 months.
oh, really? Okay.
I'm holding it in my hand.
Maybe because it's a paper one, or you bought it then. But I mean, the railroad
I don't know.
website says
No, this
60
was
days.
paper ticket bought at the machine on December 28th, and it expires on June 28th. So this one is 6 months.
Oh, wow, okay.
That's the 10
Well,
trip
6 months would
off-peak.
be fine. Don't
Yeah,
lock
no,
me
6
in.
months is fine. I just don't want, because otherwise it's going to open up a can of worms if they try to say, okay, the 20 trip peak is going to expire in 30 days to accommodate those 2 and 3 day a weekers travels, because I can see that being an issue.
Oh, no, it definitely shouldn't be 30 days. It should be at least as long as a 10 trip, if not longer. Well,
Correct,
that's something
yeah.
we gotta look into.
And then the other thing is, Brian, you said you looked at the website, and the website only said it's 60 days for a 10 trip off peak.
yes.
So why is mine expiring in June?
There's a, miscommunication someplace.
Yeah. So Hector, there's something for you to look at.
I also was going to ask that the 20 trip is a pilot, right? And it's only supposed
Yes,
to last
it's a pilot.
at
Yeah.
least 4 months.
Yeah, I would say at least 3 or 4 months, yep.
Well, it just calls into what is the time span of the expiration, because if it's got to
We
be
gotta
that
look-
4 months at least,
Yeah, no, we gotta look into that. You make a good point.
So I brought
All right,
that
They
up.
any
can
other-
just continue it after 4 months, and you're stuck with a 20 trip ticket that, the pilot's over. Well, I had 3 rides left.
Yeah, right.
No, I don't think they'll do that to you. That's, but yeah, I can see that being a concern. Any other questions on fares? Okay, Hector, can you just give us an update on the third track and the continuing saga with Garden City?
Oh, we finally got the permit right before New Year's, right before Christmas, like between Christmas and New Year's, they finally caved. The the judges were they kept losing in the court, and then there was a court date. We were supposed to go all see the judge on January 4th, and then right before that they conceded. So we have the permit, and work is we closed the road, and we're starting that work. So the critical period that the reason why that was so critical is we have all the outages for the year are planned. So it's in April. The weekend in April is when we have the outage to put the bridge in for that. So we're going to be racing to do that in time. So we're still on schedule to complete the project before the end of the year.
Okay, great. Well, I think that's what everybody's really kind of focused on. Are we still going to be able to make that date? I think the governor went and made a comment that we were still going schedule for the date, but yet again, she's not the one who's building it. You are.
No, so this year the race is finishing third track, finishing in Queens Interlocking. There's upgrades at Queens Interlocking to make third track work, and also for the new Elmont station to make all that work. Finish the new Elmont station, and also an opening and service to East Side Access starting. So it's a busy year. There's a lot of outages coming up this year to finish. Most of the outages aren't the contractors, more on the railroad side of the track work and finishing up the track work that's needed to get all the systems running.
All right. Penn Station, how's the renovation work going for the corridor work?
Oh, so that's proceeding. I know officially the date to finish it is early next year. So we'll see if it's I can't say if it's going to be earlier yet, but it's still on track for early next year.
Okay, early 2023, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Hector, I got a question for that. When you say finish, that's both sides. So in other words, they're going to open up like the other side maybe mid-year and then work on the side, the other side. How does that work?
Well, I don't know how. I think it's all tied together. Just open up the whole corridor. I believe it's to open it up once.
Because you can't do that because they still got to raise the roof on the one that's existing now, so to speak.
Well,
But
we
that's
have
going
that.
up too.
Yeah, but remember we have we have the what do you call it?
All that plywood and stuff.
Yeah, so they can work up. They can work above that. So they just
All right,
when they're
'cause all
done.
right, because all those big ass beams are still there.
Yeah, no, it's actually a work platform. They can actually work above where you're walking.
Yeah.
All righty.
I wanted to say, with going back to Elmont, I want to talk about the ridership for Elmont. So opening weekend, the two Islanders games at the opening week. Oh, there was an Islander giving a concert the opening weekend. Like that Saturday for the first game on November 20th, we had about 2,700 riders total.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Not bad.
Yeah. Based on what's going on the last few weeks, and they've been casting a lot of games, and it's more than more like 1,000 or so. So it's gone down now. And then so I can send you guys a copy just so you see it. So we have we did do to verify. We did have people actually counting in the field, but basically we use train time. So after the next day after every event, we get a breakdown of the riders getting on and off at Queens Village, at Belmont, and at Elmont. So I can send you guys a sample of actually I'll send you the open day weekend one. That's an interesting one, so you can see. And then it's interesting. You can see people, they go one way, but then they come home a different way. It's not even. The breakdown is not even. People make different decisions based on whatever they're trying to accomplish afterwards or before.
Yeah, we won't know for sure until the station's completely open, but
Yeah.
at least it's something.
Mhm.
All righty, we had a couple of other items that not on the agenda, but one that I brought up to you privately, but just with the waiting room hours when we get extreme cold weather. Now I know we had extreme cold weather a couple of days ago, and I didn't see an email alert that the waiting rooms would be open, but you mentioned that the policy remains, and if the temperatures do get to a certain coldness or whatever, that you do open the stations 24/7?
Yeah, so like when it's gonna be below 30 degrees for several days in a row, then we'll keep them open 24/7. I know talking to some folks in the PIO, in the past, we have sent out alerts periodically, or sometimes we put out a press release about, preparation for a storm. Sometimes we mention it there. It looks like we haven't been doing consistently. And then I think we've been doing less alerts because what's been happening is, especially if we put it on social media, then we get a lot of backlash of, there's always exceptions, when something happens and the police respond, they lock it, and then there winds up being a lot of negative chatter about, that we're lying, that we're not keeping them open. So there's been an internal debate of, should we be blasting it out every single time or not? But the
I think
policy
the key
remains.
thing well, what's going to happen is the riders actually, if it's cold, they're going to check to see whether that waiting room's open, no matter what. They're going to go and pull on the door. So
Yeah.
as long as they're open, that's the important thing. I mean,
Yeah.
Because that's critical. Because I mean, some of those mornings were very, very extremely cold. Alrighty. And again, that's something that we maybe have a slightly difference of opinion about. We'd like to see the waiting rooms open for more hours. I understand on your end the concerns that you get. It's kind of like a can't win situation, but we'll see. I mean, like personally, my home station closes, I think, at 2:00 in the afternoon, which seems crazy to me, but I guess you have your concerns.
Excuse me, Jerry, this is
yeah.
Chris. I have a question about that, because extreme cold, it does affect some of the accessibility stations, Hector. It would be nice that they do keep it open for them. Because
It's for everybody. It's for everybody.
Yeah.
But why I'm adding that accessibility piece, because seniors and disabilities do need that. So can we please, make sure that, because, this Saturday and this weekend is going to be really cold, we need to, do something about it. I'm just concerned because some of these people like to go out, because some people will do, but some don't. But we also need to sometimes remind the MTA police to just check out those places, please, those rooms as well, because that's also going to be a minor issue with homeless. Like they're going to say, "Oh, I could stay here now." No.
They need, if it's under certain degrees of weather, they're supposed to be taken to a shelter, whether they want to or not.
For safety and keep themselves warm.
There are rules like that.
Yeah, thank you.
Alrighty. All right, Hector, we had one other thing that I think Brian wanted to bring up, was about the.
I don't want to talk about that. Just kidding.
You don't want to talk about bicycles and scooters?
Well, I see one of the other topics on the agenda is the Senate bill for the bike ped, which is going to overlap with this discussion anyway. So I don't know if we want to discuss it then, or...
Believe it
It's
or
kinda
not, that's a
different.
totally different,
Yeah.
believe it or not, that's a totally different animal. We'll get
Well,
into that very shortly.
It's encouraging bike use, so it goes along with.
No,
the
it's
line.
acknowledging bike use.
Right. Well, basically, my understanding of it is that bicycles are not supposed to be on rush hour
Go ahead.
trains. You don't need a permit for a bicycle anymore. That's been eliminated, but you're still not supposed to have a bicycle on a rush hour train. Now, the other thing I think that you had brought up, and I brought up at a meeting, was the policy with these scooters. And apparently, and Hector, you can correct me if I'm wrong, apparently there is no scooter policy at this time, just bicycles. The scooters kind of was something that they never thought about. And you're seeing it more and more, at least I'm seeing it more and more on my trains. I don't know if you guys have seen it, or I don't know if people are considering it a problem. Is that right? Am I correct, Hector, or?
No, yeah. So, I mean, we're keeping an eye on it. I mean, before ridership has been low, so we've been noticing it, so we're keeping an eye on it. But at some point, when ridership is fully back, then it will be it will be a big issue by then. So we got to figure out what to do by then.
Can I ask a stupid question?
Go ahead. There's no stupid questions.
Well, what's the definition of a bicycle? And the reason I'm saying that, I see a lot of ones, obviously, they're your normal bicycles, but then I've seen these ones that collapse and go, people put them in the luggage racks. Are those considered bicycles by MTA definition? The ones that fold and go on the luggage rack?
I mean, if it falls on the track, that's not causing any issues at all. It's really a full size bike that takes up space. You can't, that's an issue. But the folding one, I don't think there's any problems with that at all.
Okay,
They
I'm
are
just
bikes.
kind of curious what the
So-
definition was.
I don't think the MTA or the Long Island Railroad redefines what the word bicycle is, and those are considered a bicycle.
But one thing I've noticed, and again, this is just from observation, is they never bother anybody who has a fold-up bicycle. If you can fold it up and put it on the luggage rack or whatever, or don't impede anybody in the aisles, the conductors generally let it go. And I haven't seen anybody really complain about people with it. It's the people that have the full-size bicycles and they're standing blocking a doorway. Those are the people that we get complaints about.
Yeah, there was a
There's
guy
also
Go ahead,
Go ahead,
Brian.
Brian.
there's also supposed to only be a limit of 4 bikes per train. So not only are they coming on in the wrong times, in the wrong direction, but there's also too many bikes on the trains as well when they are on.
That was
So
probably
it
easier
seems
to
like since we went
monitor.
away from
with
permits, they
permitting.
went away from
Guys, this is Chris. Since I deal with that, I had that issue almost, but thank God the Long Island Care made sure that she got on the train. That's why I'm pointing my thumb over here.
Yeah, me.
Got on and made sure, because the bicycles were in different cars. And I agree with Brian and Larry. And Larry, that's not a dumb question. That's an intelligent question, because there is got to be some policies with bicycles, but also policies with these scooters, because it's like they're thinking they're a bicycle, they can do whatever they want, but there's got to be a policy with scooters that they got to, some of them can be folded, but they also do have special bags for them, I'm seeing now, that they can cover it, so therefore it doesn't interfere with any, moisture or rain, all this jazz they're claiming. This is what I'm hearing from people. But on accessibility note, they know that the walker or wheelchair has first priority. They're second priority.
Yes, the conductors have been very good about making sure that myself and others, because the wheelchair was on with me with a walker, now, and we both were they made sure we had the full access, and they made the bikes move out of the way and told them they have the priority over you. So I appreciated that.
And just to let you know, I did mention this to Hector, not at Monday's meeting, but the last Long Island Railroad meeting. So Hector, it's in the records that I did mention this, that it's been worked on very well with Long Island Cares.
But I just want to bring us back to the issue that I brought up and hopefully
Okay, yeah.
resolving. So there is an existing bicycle policy. It's not being enforced. It seems like since we went away from permits, enforcement stopped. So I think if we all agree, we want to ask for there to be more enforcement of the 4 bicycle rule on the trains, and then also not during peak hours or rush hours.
No, I agree with that 100%.
Separately, there's the scooter issue where there needs to be a scooter policy, whether they're totally not allowed or if they are allowed, what is the limit and restrictions on them? I think with many of these scooters, there's regular scooters and then there's the motorized scooters. And we need to have both of them defined and maybe different rules for either one of them. The motorized scooters, it's like somebody bringing a moped on the trains. There's batteries that are combustible that have limitations for things. Is there a conflict with that being on the train? So I think that's one thing that needs to be looked into and addressed, and a policy created for them, the ones that are motorized, whether they're electric motorized or some of them have little gas engines on them too. The other is just regular kick scooters. Those I see less of an issue. They're much smaller. They're actually much smaller than a bike. They could probably fit on a rack. They collapse down. And maybe that's what it is, that those need to be collapsed if they're brought on board. So just some ideas and suggestions. But if the council agrees, I think that we need to proceed with pushing for this bicycle policy to be enforced, and then for them to define a scooter policy.
No, I agree. I think there should be a scooter policy. And oddly enough, most of the complaints that I've got about the scooters have been in the train stations, because you'll get some of these guys, they'll get off in Penn Station and they'll hop on their scooter while they're still in the station and they're riding it through. And, you know, and maybe it's not as crowded as the good old days, but there's still enough people that you got to be careful, you know, driving a scooter around. But yeah, definitely there should be a scooter policy.
And the bicycle policy on the website, it says, you know, they shouldn't be dirty. They shouldn't be off-road ones that are covered in dirt. We're also supposed to keep them clear of the aisles. Don't block the vestibules. I mean, these are the issues that are constantly happening. I don't know what the solution is, because there's no good place to place a bicycle. So not only are they taking up seats, but they're blocking pathways.
Yeah, the only good place good place if there's no people who need the wheelchair people, then you could use the accessibility area, you know, on the one side of the car. But you really don't have that much space on the electrics. I mean, on the diesels, you have the push-up seats, you know, over by the bathrooms. You know, you could probably do it over there. But yeah, you do make an excellent point. There's really not good places to put them.
For the bicycles, and I'm looking obviously at this website now, it says types of bicycles. It does define, so Larry, to your ask before, a traditional bike, single seat, human powered, two-wheel bicycle, says the size of the wheels and stuff, but then also says not permitted, no tandem bikes, no motorized bikes. There's no motorized bikes. There shouldn't be motorized scooters, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's,
I think that's a problem throughout the system, because motorized bikes, you know, battery operated bikes, or the electric bikes are pervasive in the city and throughout, and people are taking them on. And in fact, I had a conversation with Jessica, who, as you know, used to be a conductor. And she said that that's when the conductors are supposed to stop the trains and call in a hazard or something to that effect. So it's a dangerous situation that I would imagine the conductors also have issues with enforcing, because they are so prevalent. But it would be helpful if there were a clearly laid out policy. I agree. So maybe that's something to take up at the board. I mean,
Yeah.
unless,
okay, we'll have to work on
and-
drafting something up that, you know, makes sense, that we could present to the board about, you know, here's a concern that came up with the railroad, and, you know, we need to work on certain definitions and enforcement policies and things of that nature.
Well, and that's why I was linking it to the Senate bill, because the Senate bill says the bill would require the MTA to develop a strategic plan to promote cycling and pedestrian access on MTA bridges, bike parking at MTA subway and commuter stations, and bike access on board MTA equipment. So the bill actually, and that's why it totally aligns with what the discussion is that we're having now, because there's going to be more promotion of not only parking bikes at train stations, but bringing them on board the trains. So
All right,
there's already an issue now, and the bill is going to be promoting more bikes on the trains.
Okay,
do you want to have that now?
Since we
or do
swung
you
into
wanna-
that, let's get into that conversation. Lisa, you want to just give us the overview?
Sure. Brian, so there are two, the bill probably that you're looking at is the bill that was passed, but then there's something that's called a chapter amendment that's going to be brought up that revises it further. So a number of bicycle advocacy organizations push very hard to to bring a bill to before the Senate and the Assembly, which did pass in a very revised form, and with many thanks to the MTA for getting it to where it ended up being. That would that will require the MTA to develop a strategic plan that for bicycle access to its facilities, but also that will add a member to each of our councils who has the experience. And the one that you're looking at, Brian, probably talks about 3 to NYCTRC. That was changed to 1 that has experience of looking at or an interest in bicycle and pedestrian access, or bicycling and walking. You may notice that, and one of the interesting aspects of it is there doesn't say who's going to appoint that person for Long Island Railroad Council or for the Metro North Commuter Council. So there are some deficiencies with the legislation. We at PCAC are required to make recommendations to the MTA by June of this year of some ways that they can improve bike and pedestrian access to their facilities. And, facilities means bridges and not tunnels, bridges and their rail and train and other, stations and other, I guess, trains and buses and subways and the like. It's something that we've been raising some concerns about. And so it has significantly changed. Initially, there was going to be, under the initial terms of this legislation, what it called for, an entirely separate organization within the MTA that was going to be solely focused on bike and ped access. And we said, well, that just isn't going to work at all. So we were able to at least bring it into PCAC. And, we recognize that people do bike and ped, walk and use their bicycles and other modes of transit to get to subways, buses, trains, etc. The first mile, last mile is a problem that nobody's solved. If you don't have a car or to take driving out of the equation. Some of the potential solutions could be things like bike pod parking so that people can bike and leave their bicycles safely at different stations, and they're putting something in at Grand Central to that effect. It could, one of the recommendations may very well be no more than 4 trains must no more than 4 bicycles must be, and this must be enforced, to go to the laws or the regulations that are in effect now, but that they must be enforced to put some regulations and parameters around the uses of the facilities as well, not just carte blanche. So, that does provide the opportunity to be, not just to be in the conversation, but to start the conversation as well. We will be reaching out to the project sponsor, the bill sponsors, because we do think that it makes a lot more sense for us to see what the MTA's 20-year needs assessment is and what they put forward as a strategic plan before we come up with some ideas just off the top of our heads, but that may or may not work. As I said, we also need to see who are going to be the appointing electeds for the 2 councils. And there's, as we know, no way they're going to be appointed by June. So the additional members who would be bringing their expertise and ideas aren't going to be here for that initial wave of input. There are some very cynical people who have raised the thought that perhaps all this legislation is really so that there could be cycling over certain bridges within the city.
You
And,
can't
you
see
know, that's
cycling over the Throg's Neck. I mean, that'd be crazy.
cycling over the Verrazano is something that's raised again and again and again as a
Heard
key
that,
goal.
yeah, just,
And, you know, there are some of these projects are going to cost billions of dollars, and they're going to take away, not billions individually, but all together. And they would, you know, you have to balance that with, if you have $1 billion, how do you want to spend that? So, you know, there needs to be, I think that there's some low hanging fruit, but we don't know what it is. The MTA's taken some significant steps on looking to see what that low hanging fruit is, and we'll be meeting with some of their bridges and tunnel folks to see what steps they're planning to take, and with people that they have dedicated to this bike ped analysis and project, to see how we can cohabitate, collaborate, and cooperate. But I think that the point that you raised, Brian, and that we're talking about here is really important as we go into this. It's not just about facilities, it's about use of the facilities and the regulations and the way that and the interaction with the riders and all of the users of the system. So Bradley and Kara and Jess, let's make a note of that and be sure that that's something that we work into everything that we talk about.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that. Those are really good points that we need to worry about, especially when it comes to peak hours and the trains are crowded and there's too many bikes in the way. But maybe there's some sort of things we can do on the policy level that could help that, so that we can make sure that the bicyclists, you know, they're getting their needs met, but so are the regular commuters as well. So it'd be really great if you guys have any other thoughts or concerns on this matter, and work those, you know, our way, so that we can bring those issues up when we get into more detailed conversations on this issue. That would be very helpful.
okay.
Brian, does that help? I know it doesn't help with the immediate, what are we going to do about bikes and scooters on the trains now? But in the, you know, in looking at it in the context of how we as PCAC and as the members of the councils have a role in the future of helping to address and hoping to address.
I think it's great that they wrote in the bill to partner with us and the other councils, offering to have an additional member who maybe is an advocate for bicycling, so we get their point of view represented. So yeah, I think that part built in is good. What worries me is we could easily, or not what worries me, but the part that doesn't worry me is being able to make suggestions for bike parking at commuter rail stations. We used to have those little igloos. We used to have bike racks. They pretty much removed most of them in most of the stations that I ride on. So it's bringing maybe some of those things back, or maybe there's some newer hardware that could be placed there. But the part that does concern me is the part where it says adding additional bike access onboard MTA equipment, which it says throughout the bill. Because to the point I made earlier, we already have concerns that we're asking them to clarify and enforce, but yet at the same time, we're supposed to promote bicycling and look at additional bike access on our equipment.
So this isn't going to be easy.
Right.
It's going to be we're walking a tightrope.
Yeah, it sounds like maybe there's an opportunity for us to have, not an opportunity, but it opens the door for us to have a conversation with some of the labor folks about what their concerns could potentially be about having the conversations. Unless, Hector, you have heard anything from any of the, or Jerry, but from any of the conductors or from any of those guys. Anthony's not shy about talking about his
No.
concerns.
No, I haven't heard anything regarding it. I'm sure we will in the not too distant future, but so far, no.
And I think we're looking at it the perspective of the rider without a bicycle.
Mm-hmm.
Has there been any surveys done with the riders who do have bicycles? Like, what are they looking for, and how can our council help them? So how do they want to secure their bike at the stations? Did they, we used to offer igloos. We used to offer just, the traditional racks that they have in like parks and stuff. Like, if we don't have an expert or an advocate on our council, how do we survey the riders who do bring bikes and say, how do you want to secure your bike? And then also, if you brought it on board, what's an ideal way of bringing it on board? Or where would you want to store it? Or, why do you bring a bike on board? Like, there probably could be some questionnaires out that could help us, I guess, support the program, but then also make sure it doesn't interfere with 98% of the riders who do not bring a bike on board.
Lisa, sounds like a research paper.
Yeah, well, I was just going to say that's a wonderful suggestion, because that's something that, we'll talk about it, amongst the staff and get back to you guys, but that could be something that we recommend to the MTA to do a full-fledged survey of actual bike riders. And it's something that we could use our own social media platforms to get feedback as well, and, partner with them on that. But that's a really great suggestion.
And also with the bike advocacy community, they're quite tight knit and vocal. That's a great input, insight, and suggestion. And I know that there's at least one person on this call is an avid bike rider.
All righty. Do we have any other questions regarding the Senate bill or?
So the governor hasn't signed it yet. I mean, the governor has signed it yet, but it still needs to go through the chapter amendment. So if there's anything else you see in there that you think we need to address, I need to get on that tomorrow. First, I need to make sure I'm not lobbying. And then I need to reach out to the project sponsors to see how we can get them to address a couple of things that would make it even better.
Like we say in the PTA, we don't lobby, we educate.
That's what I like to say too, until they hit me with a $10,000 fine at my door.
Yeah, no, we can't do that. Alrighty, so
Jerry,
is
hi.
any-
In reference to the Senate, I have a question about this. Are they
Okay.
also taking into account how the bicycles and the scooters will be taking space away from people with disabilities?
no, they're not.
Yeah,
No, they're
well,
not taken into account.
they're not.
That's why we have to have a discussion.
Well, Lisa,
They put this grand idea out there, and it is lovely to have more, people who have bike access and stuff like that, but they leave the means and methods up to the railroad, and I guess up to us, which is why we have to. So yeah, no, there's going to be difficulties, and that's why we have people like Chris.
and you know
He's
what
going
else?
to be pointing them out to us.
Yes, there is a big problem, though. Udanis Rodriguez is now the commissioner in New York City for the DOT. Used to be the head of the New York City Council Transportation. He's Mr. Pro Bike. And the lady, the apprentice, used to get on his case because he never would take into account people with disabilities.
Again, this is all going to be part
That's
of a major
a whole nother
discussion.
conversation.
Yep.
I know,
Yep.
but I will be going at him for that.
Okay.
Ron had a question about whether or not the Long Island Railroad is currently shut down east of Hicksville to Huntington and Port Jeff.
Heck, are you there?
I haven't gotten any messages to that effect.
Hold on, I'm looking at, there's something, a broken rail. Ordered buses, this goes. There's a broken rail in Amont. The Amont interlocking, so that's west of east of Syosset. It looks like there was an incident happening. Yeah, so we're ordering buses because it's a broken rail there. And I believe that's mostly single track along there.
Well, thanks for bringing that up, Ron. And also, Ron had mentioned something earlier when we were talking about the bikes, about some of these batteries that might explode. I know there's stores that won't allow kids to ride these things in there because they're worried about them. In fact, I think, aren't they banned in Penn Station? The little
think it's
motorized
banned in
scooters
Penn
with the
Station.
batteries?
Not this afternoon, they weren't.
We're seeing something about those. Well, yeah, but no, because of there was a concern about some of the batteries that some of these scooters use, that they can, they're flammable, they can burn. All righty.
And Jerry, just to let you know, Jerry, quickly, I do see them on those platforms because they almost did hit a motorized wheelchair, one of the DIA members.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. That's like one of the few complaints I heard was it was on the platform because they almost hit somebody.
Yeah.
All righty. Anybody else have anything for Hector's before we let him go? This sounds like he might be busy this afternoon. Any questions for Hector? Okie dokie. Hector, we're good.
Thank you. Take care.
All right, thank you. We got a couple of other items on the agenda before we call it a day. One, we sent out a copy of what they call the Commuter Bill of Rights. This was something that was drafted a few years back. I know it was at least a few years because the address on the bottom of it is 347 Madison Avenue.
2014.
2014. Okay, so it's, wow, 7 going on 8 years. It makes perfect sense to me. I don't see anything that needs to be changed in it, but we want to put it out there because it is 7 or 8 years old, to see if, Brian or Larry had any suggestions of any changes.
So can I give a little bit of a backstory about why we raised this?
Sure.
So we PCAC staff sits in on, as I tell you regularly, sits on regular calls with both local and national advocacy organizations. And with the federal funding that's come through for operating, we've nationally heard concerns about service reductions. And somebody raised the when you're getting all this money, should there be reductions in service? Should there be a rider or a commuter bill of rights that says if you take federal funding, there should be a certain level of service. And that prompted us, excuse me, to look to see if there were any. I thought in the back of my head that I knew something about a commuter bill of rights that had been passed in LIRCC. I saw that Chuck Schumer had wanted to do something that was after the summer of hell, and then a few years later, this bill was born. And so, there's still, I think this is all still relevant. I think that adding something about maybe accessibility would be bring it into the future a bit. I don't know if we want to add something about, about service levels. If, to me personally, I would maybe not have it all in capital letters about courteous and respectful treatment, because it makes it sound like the MTA, the LIR workers are mean or nasty. But this
I agree with you. I don't think some of it, because it's like when you put it in all caps and boldface, it's like you're shouting, and the whole idea is for it to be, not to create conflict. It's just to be able to, give the riders, like you said, the Bill of Rights, something that they're entitled to.
So one thing that I think also we might want to consider is something in regard to COVID, clean, something wording in regard to healthy, something of that nature, which is the one thing when I read this, because obviously when this was done, COVID didn't exist. But now we're in a different world, and we're going to be in this world for the next few years, if not forever. So maybe we want to include something in regard to healthy, clean, or something of that nature.
Yeah,
Okay.
I thought the same thing. And Larry, there is one that says customers entitled to clean cars and stations, but maybe it's just revising that existing number
Yeah.
8 to
Yeah.
clean,
You know what?
healthy, environment.
If we don't-
Environment.
All right, so we don't spend too much time on this. I agree with that. So I think the changes we should make is modify number 8, the customer's clean, to put in something of the health aspects of it. We'll figure out the proper wording. Lisa, that's something you and the staff can come up with, right? We can just
Yep.
kind of tweak the wording on that. And then, since I don't like odd numbers, we should have a 12. So Chris, I might, even though you're not a commuter council member, I might task you with something here.
Yes, sir.
There should be something about accessibility.
Yes.
So if you could give us a little line to, not right this minute.
Okay.
Think about it. But we should add something about accessibility to the
Agree.
Bill of Rights.
I agree, and I will make sure, make sure Lisa, Bradley, and the PCAC team, forgive me, I don't say every name, but I will make sure I will put it in.
I'll help him. I'm on the Long Island Railroad ADA Task Force.
Okay, good.
So I'll be very happy to help.
All right,
Great.
we appreciate that.
My
And then
pleasure.
Lisa, one thing, once we iron this out, we had talking to the railroad about our posters that were supposed to be in the stations. And I just looked, we have one in Patchogue Station, but it's still the 347 Madison Avenue.
Yeah, it's
line.
old.
So what I'm thinking is our new posters basically should be probably this commuter bill of rights with just a little more space on the bottom for the commuter council, and then maybe your name, my name, and then maybe some sort of way that they can contact the commuter council, email address or whatever.
Yep, definitely.
Alrighty.
That's great.
Alrighty.
I had another suggestion.
Sure.
There's only one mention in here of stations, and it's about clean cars and stations. But yet, like when it's talking about comfortable environment, it's talking about like on the train, like just making sure they're ventilated in the summer and stuff. But maybe there's a need for something about the stations being comfortable as well, because they talk about seats available on the train. They talk about being comfortable on the train, issues with employees on the train, but maybe it's got to be expanded, and everything that says on the train also says at the stations as well. Or is there another line item that we want to encourage something particular to the stations?
Right. Let me think about that and discuss that with Lisa and the staff. Only because, you make an excellent point. We're kind of having to fight in this little battle with the railroad about the waiting room hours and stuff. And that goes part and parcel with, a comfortable environment. A more comfortable environment in Patchogue would be so that if I step off the train at 6 o'clock and I have to use the men's room, I can go into the station and use the men's room. It hasn't been locked for 4 hours already. I'm not saying I have to keep it open till 2 in the morning, but again, that's part of the comfortable environment. So yeah, you do make a good point about stations. So,
And like when it says clean cars and stations, inclusive of the bathrooms or restrooms, like
Yeah.
you could probably drop restrooms in there in a couple places and stations in there in a couple places.
what we'll do is, we just wanted to get a general idea of how everybody was feeling. So I think what we'll do is I'll talk to Lisa and the staff, and we can tweak these a little bit, and then we can finalize it at our next meeting.
Yep, that's great. Agree. And so we'll work on that, and we'll share that, and good ideas.
Okay, the one
And
other
Jerry,
thing.
you had this.
Yeah.
You had the suggestion of adding this to our council poster. It's not anywhere on the MTA's website. I didn't check our council's website or the PCA's website. So where else besides posters can we make sure this is
Well, we
shared?
should put it on our website, definitely.
Mhm. Well, we can push this out. I mean, this I think could also be, the basis for each of the councils developing a commuter bill of rights, whether it's, similar or the same. And I think that would get a lot of traction, not just for our region, but in other areas as well.
Right.
And on
Yeah,
the-
I was just thinking the same thing, that, it'd be nice to do for the other councils as well. And when I found the original Bill of Rights, I know that got mailed when it was created, it got mailed to elected officials and everything, but I don't remember our old website because that was so long ago that I believe that it was up there. But again, that website doesn't exist anymore, so it should live on our website once again, once we get it corrected.
And I think not just ours, but also the MTA or Long Island Railroad's website. Like when you scroll to the bottom, there it says more resources, and they have Long Island Railroad rules of conduct. So they're telling the riders how to behave, but also have on there what our expectations are and what they're guaranteeing us as riders.
Makes perfect sense.
Yep.
Okay, one other thing, and I don't think we should spend a lot of time on it right now. I think we should take a look. We wanted to have a discussion about the 2022 council priorities. And funny thing was, I had sent Lisa a copy back in 2018, which is like 4 years ago. Mark had asked me for some ideas for the 2018, what our priorities should be. And I sent him a list. Unfortunately, I just sent it to Larry. So I think we should send the old list out, even though it's a few years old, because a lot of them still pertain. Some we could take off, some, state of good repair, communications, things of that nature. So I'd like to send it out to all the council members, and then you can weigh in. Obviously, there'll be a couple of changes of priorities. Well, one of the things that weren't on this priority list is we didn't have that many vacancies at the time. So obviously trying to work with our local elected officials and get our vacancies filled will be on the 2022 priority list. So Lisa, if you could send out my list from 2018. And then this way, Brian gets a chance to look at it. Larry, I think he's already taken a look at it, but also Chrissy and Marilyn will get a look at it as well. And then we'll get some feedback over the next couple of weeks, and we'll put something together for the next meeting, and then we can finalize it if that's okay with everybody.
And that's great, because this is also going to help us inform our work for the coming year and our annual report. Jerry, one of the things that you had mentioned in one of our many offline communications was your real focus on resilience and interest in that. And that's not on here, except, it's in here in every aspect of it, but not as a standalone bullet point. And maybe that's something that we want to, add just as a thought.
Definitely.
And Jerry, and
Yeah.
we actually, I followed up with another email, and I believe that you were on that email chain. The other council chairs are looking at the list that you had created with the understanding that was a list from several years ago. So each Randy and Andrew, they're working on their list so that we can share that with those councils as well. So that part of it's already underway.
Okay, great. And we might be able to cherry pick something off Metro North's list that we maybe didn't think of. Maybe Randy's got something that's, and I know resiliency will be on their list because they really took a beating. Ours was nothing compared to what happened to Metro North.
Yeah. This time.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I think that's something we want to weave into everything that we do. So, yeah, Ron, we will absolutely get non-members to it after we get to the next phase, I think. If that's okay with Jerry.
Yeah. Okay, so before we conclude, is there any old business that anybody wanted to bring up that we didn't touch on?
Yeah, I'd like to bring one thing up.
Yeah.
If that's okay. Lisa,
Yep.
so I'm going to use your name in vain. I met Lisa a week or change ago at a press conference with the governor. And one of the main things that she was saying at that press conference, and the press conference was at the Fulton train station, subway station in New York City, that she is there. New York City is going to push for more police presence and things like that. But they kept saying everything subway, subway, subway. I would love to see if we can send a message to say, can we press this also for Long Island Railroad and probably Metro North? So, you know, I think we might want to send a letter to the governor to impress that they're going to have New York City police on subways. I think maybe there should be a look at Nassau County Police on Long Island Railroad more often with all this new wangled thing that she's got going on. And Lisa, I don't know if you have any input on that. You were at the conference.
Right. That's interesting. I don't know if there's any, what role Nassau Suffolk police have in patrolling the trains, or this, and well, I know they have a role in patrolling the stations, right? So better interaction maybe with well, actually, I don't know if they do. Is it the individual who patrols the stations? If somebody decides that they want to lock the Babylon station because they've gotten too many calls, who does that?
Well, Nassau County Police do come to the stations, but they leave most of that onto anything on the platform, things like that are usually MTA police. Now, we know that MTA police do not have a lot of people on Long Island.
Right.
That's Larry. I remember hearing about that a couple of years ago, and I think this is maybe an exaggeration, but they were saying like they really only have like literally like 2 or 3 police officers patrolling.
I think that's changed. I think we heard them say that had increased, but still not enough.
Okay.
Correct. Now, the governor made a whole big ordeal at that press conference of that New York City police officers are now going to be on the trains and things of that nature. And everything was transit. Everything was trains to get people back into the subway.
Mhm.
I think maybe we should consider sending a letter to Madam Governor, impressing her that, hey, Long Island Railroad should be included in this, that, Long Island Railroad does have crime issues too on the trains. And, we would love to see some kind of initiative, and she's hawking for votes. So this would be the time to get her to do things for Long Island.
Yeah. Right. So,
Sounds like a good idea.
Yep. And the other side of the conversation that they were having was the announcement of the partnership with social service agencies and helping homeless and drug addicted people to find the services that they need, which made me question, well, gee, what happens to the contracts that are already in place? Do they just go away, or are they going to make sure that now finally they're being held to the standards that they should be held to? What's the deal there? And I've not had any answers to those questions, but I've probably not been asking the right people. Anybody here know? But I think that's asking for an extension of the extension of the partnership for those services to all the entire MTA service area is spot on.
Okay.
Yeah, just I tried to. I don't have the access to the governor that I used to have since this Omicron stuff. I'm not allowed to actually go up to her and talk to her anymore. She has to request your presence in her office or something. But because I would have said something directly about Long Island Railroad, because we've had discussions before. So I can't approach her and ask her until she bellows me into her office for one reason or another. But I think that it might be good that a letter come from the PCAC or Long Island Railroad Commuter Council in regard to saying, hey, how about us? What about us in regard to all these, police presidents and all this kind of stuff?
I think that sounds good. Maybe
Great.
with in conjunction with Metro North.
Yeah.
All right, anybody else have anything? Because I gotta go catch a train. And I'm up on the Upper East Side, so I gotta get half an hour to get to Penn Station. Are we good? Anybody else? Lisa, you want to continue the meeting without me, or you think we're good?
I think if everybody's good, we'll send you out the 2018 priorities. And look forward to your feedback.
Yep, definitely. Definitely feedback. And if you think, 15 minutes from now, geez, Jerry rushed us off. I meant to mention this. Shoot an email to us and we'll get an email discussion going.
Yes. And Happy
Alrighty,
New
good-
Year.
Happy
There
New
we go.
Year. So
All right.
motion to adjourn,
Motion to adjourn.
Happy New
Second
Year,
that.
everybody.
all in favor? Aye.
Aye.